And I must say that in reflecting on this question, I find that I have little patience now for the politics and business as usual. I no longer believe that this system will die a death of 1,000 little cuts, a little reform here, a little reform there. I no longer believe it. But what we've seen is that systems of racial and social control adapt too easily to minor reforms, and in fact have the capacity to be reborn in new form, tailored to the needs and constraints of the time. What we face today is not a problem of failed public policy, for the system actually works very well, precisely as it has been designed. Now, what we face is a crisis of conscience. And those who argue that advocacy challenging mass incarceration can be successful without overturning the utterly immoral public consensus that gave rise to it and sustains it are engaging in fanciful thinking, a form of denial. Yes, isolated victories can be won, even a string of victories, but in the absence of a fundamental shift in public consciousness, this system as a whole will remain intact. The extent victories are won without a shift, this system will rebound. It will adapt. It will emerge in new form, just as convict leasing replaced slavery, or it will be reborn, just as mass incarceration replaced Jim Crow. Now, we do not have to look any further for evidence of the adaptability of this system in the history of New York City. Marijuana was decriminalized in this great city in the 1970s. The city was way ahead of its time. Possession of a small quantity of marijuana became a civil offense like a speeding ticket. But there was a loophole. There's always a loophole. Marijuana is in public view, well, then it's still a crime, a misdemeanor warranting arrest. And the police found in New York City that even after marijuana was decriminalized, not only could they continue to arrest poor black and brown folks, but they could ratchet up the rate of arrests by many, many fold. Between the years 2002 and 2012, the NYPD spent 1 million hours making 440,000 marijuana possession arrests, overwhelmingly of young black and brown men. How? By telling them, empty your pockets, what you got on you. The practice continues to this day, as the editorial board of the New York Times recently reported, quote, Mr. de Blasio's team has produced contrived numbers in an unpersuasive attempt to prove that the arrest picture is somewhat improved. But there's no hiding the fact that New York City is still administering unfair police practices that disproportionately penalize communities of color and damage the lives of overwhelmingly young people who are targeted. Public anger around this issue will continue to grow until Mr. de Blasio changes the very ugly status quo, end quote. The striking racial disparity can be seen by the contrasting Upper East Side, which has one of the lowest marijuana arrest rates in the city, with its neighbor directly to the northeast Harlem. The arrest rate for marijuana possession in East Harlem is 110 times higher than the Upper East Side. Even though we all know, and studies have confirmed for decades, that people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites. Over and over, we've seen that the same mentality and belief systems resurface and continue to operate, exploiting whatever loopholes are available or manifesting themselves in new structural arrangements. So what does this mean for us as we reflect on doing the work of transformative justice? Well, after years of walking the path of piecemeal policy reform and tinkering with the machine, working as a civil rights lawyer and advocate, I now finally understand exactly what Dr. King meant when he said just months before his death, after Selma, after the Civil Rights Acts and voting rights had been passed, he told a reporter, quote, "For years I labored with the idea of reforming the existing institutions of the society, a little change here, a little change there. Now I feel quite differently. I think you've got to have a reconstruction of the entire society, a revolution of values," end quote.